Midnight window, borrowed light. I knew my marriage was borrowing time the night my wife rehearsed a lie in our hallway mirror. She didn't say words. Her mouth tried on expressions like jewelry, a smile pinned at the corners, a shrug tested and discarded. She smoothed her dress, and the fabric sighed in a way our house hadn't heard in a while. The perfume was new, something with pepper and jasmine that hung low over her collarbones. "Bored dinner," Hannah said, catching my eyes in the glass before I could look away. "Don't wait up. These people can talk until sound has a hangover." I grinned like the good sport I had practiced being. "Send me a picture if they wheel out a roast of endowment," I said, and she laughed, kissing me quickly. Her mouth tasted like citrus and intent. I'm a sound engineer. I spend nights with headphones bigger than common sense, coaxing squeaks and breath into songs people will make memories to. When you listen for a living, you start to hear the difference between silence and practice silence. The apartment had been full of the second kind lately. The polite quiet of careful steps and timed showers. The way drawers close when someone's trying to look like they haven't opened anything at all. That evening I stayed in the studio corner by the window, looping the same bass line while the street slung its wet light up toward our ceiling. At 1:04 a.m. my phone pinged. A message from an unknown number. No name, just a sentence that didn't try to soften its edges. "You deserve to know. Orpheum Hotel, room 1213, tonight. R." The three letters felt like a signature and a dare. I stared at the screen until it blurred, the way you read the same sentence in a bad book because you don't want to turn the page. I could have ignored it. I could have laughed, told myself some troll found my number, gone to bed with my face buried in her pillow. Instead, I put on my jacket and left the apartment like I was slipping out of my own skin. The Orpheum wears its age on purpose. Brass rails, velvet that remembers hands, light caught in the golden throats of chandeliers. I crossed the lobby like a man walking underwater and pressed 12 in the elevator with a finger that wasn't as steady as I hoped. I didn't knock. The hallway was carpeted into discretion. Room 1213 had its door propped by a heel, red, lacquered, abandoned like evidence that wanted to be found. My chest did a small, precise thing that I will not describe as breaking, because that suggests noise. This was the opposite. This was a quiet that made me understand how loud my life had been. She opened the door before I touched it. The woman from the text. Rhea, I'd learn later. Dark hair caught back like a secret she didn't want to lose, raincoat damp at the shoulders where the city had kissed her. Her face was the kind you trust with bad news. "You're Daniel," she said, not a question. "And you're Rhea," I said, giving her the first honest sound I had made since the text, my voice unchanged. "She's not here yet," Rhea said, glancing toward the room. "I thought you should see this as it is, not as you imagine it. Imagined betrayals grow teeth." I stepped inside. The room was all soft edges and expensive forgiveness. A wall of glass looked out across the street to the offices of the foundation where Hannah worked, bridges of glass between floors, a view designed to feel like transparency. It was late. Most lights were off, but a conference room across the street glowed like a fish tank. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. The carpet swallowed my voice. Rhea took off her coat, draping it over a chair like a decision. "Because some truths are kind only if you arrive before the curtain call. Because I'm tired of being made an extra in a play performed on my dime." She looked at the glass again. "And because my husband has the same taste in risk your wife does." The word husband landed with a dull elegance. Designs clicked into place. The grant Hannah had been chasing. The foundation's director with the sharp suits and gentler laugh. The late nights with board members and patrons, who apparently enjoyed scheduling meetings at hours that required dim mirrors and room service. "We don't have to watch," Ria said quietly. "You can walk away. You can decide not to be this kind of witness." "I already am," I said, before I could convince myself otherwise. We stood near the window with the light behind us so we were only shapes to anyone looking back. The conference room across the street drew a rectangle of brightness on our carpet. In it, a man entered tall, shoulders squared the way rich men square everything. And then Hannah, my Hannah, in a dress that had ideas about gravity. She looked lit from the inside, like someone had turned the dimmer up on her bones. They didn't touch, not at first. They moved around the table, bodies aware of each other the way dancers pretend they are. She poured water with her wrist tilted in that deft, once familiar arc. He leaned a little too close over a joke I couldn't hear. "Some people watch rain and think of roofs. I watched my wife and thought of kitchens. The curve of her neck I'd kissed while the pasta boiled, the softness at the base of her spine where my hand always found her when we waited for the kettle. I was looking at those same topographies from a building away, seeing how easily they could be mapped by a stranger." "They don't always come here," Ria murmured, as if narrating a nature documentary. "Sometimes it's just a car and a drive and a door that remembers their backs. Tonight is a glass night. That's why I texted." "How long?" I asked. The question felt like a hallway with no doors. 2 months, she said. "Since the gala. They danced at the end like the floor owed them something." In the aquarium across the street, Hannah's hand lifted to her throat as if she were adjusting a necklace, and the man's hand, Samir, my brain supplied, with a memory of a business card that had once been left on our dresser, floated up as if to fix something that wasn't broken. He grazed the air near her skin. The room went slow. She didn't pull away. Ria didn't say I'm sorry. Bless her for that. Instead, her shoulder found mine, steadying and unafraid, the way strangers brace each other on trains when a corner comes too fast. The simple heat of another person became an anchor. I realized I had been holding my breath since the elevator dinged. I let it go. They were careful. Even in their care, you could feel the wick catching. Hannah leaned against the table, laughing, and his hand came down beside her, not touching but claiming space. She turned her face up to his and let the moment think about itself. Then she kissed him. It wasn't theatrical. It was the kind of kiss people give when they've been talking on a different frequency for weeks and decide to tune the radios to the same station. I looked away. Ria did too. The city continued pretending it couldn't hear. "We can stand here all night," she said, voice low, "and it won't change. Or we can do something kind for ourselves. Both are choices." "What do you do?" I asked. "When your body knows something before your brain can read it?" "You let it," she said. "Then you choose who gets your kindness next." She poured water from the room's tiny carafe as if it were an altar. When she handed me the glass, our fingers brushed. The charge was simple and complicated, the way a door is just a door until you realize which side of it you've been living on. I noticed the rim of her mouth, the way her bottom lip held a shine that wasn't makeup but life. In the window, our reflections overlapped, a temporary composite of grief and something that felt like heat on a cold day. We didn't kiss. Not then. Some kindnesses lie in what you refuse. "Thank you," I said. The two words didn't know where to put their hands. "For the text," she nodded. "You would have found out, but now you don't have to call your pain a suspicion." I left before Hannah came home. I walked the city without hearing my steps, as if the streets had been installed under me for a different scene and I'd wandered onto the wrong set. When I reached our building, my hand shook when I fit the key into the lock. The apartment smelled like the plant Hannah always forgets to water and the ghost of her perfume. She appeared 10 minutes later, cheeks bright with weather, hair piled up, that dress a little wrinkled in the places people touch. "Hey," she said, voice Ozzy, "did you eat?" I could have lied and kept the night's choreography going. Instead, I said, "How's room 1213?" and watched her face change color at the syllable count. Hannah is brave in the way risk-takers always are. She didn't try to twist it into a misunderstanding. She didn't cry. She sat down and put her hands on her knees, palms up like she was offering me proof I couldn't see. "I didn't mean for," she began and stopped, hearing the banality. "That's not even true. I meant to feel anything that wasn't paperwork and groceries. I meant to feel the way I felt when we were new." "We could have tried being new with each other," I said. My voice didn't rise, which felt like both an achievement and a failure. She nodded. She'd expected my best line and let it land in the quiet. "We got good at being pleasant," she said, like an apology. "We forgot to be hungry." "I was hungry," I said. "You were eating somewhere else." Her mouth creased. Pain, humor, something like admiration all argued for the corner seat. "Do you want an open marriage?" she asked suddenly, pushing a door open to a hallway I didn't want to tour. "Some people." "No," I said, quick enough to startle us both. "I don't want a permission slip. I want to be chosen." She looked at the floor, at our lives soaked into a rug we'd picked in better light. "Then I have to tell him no," she said, and it was the first time she used pronouns like a confession. We slept on opposite shores of the bed, a country between us that used to be a lake. The days that follow a discovery like that have an undercurrent to them, like the hum in a room after the air conditioner shuts off. We went to work. We came home. We ate on the couch because the table felt too honest. She sent a text in front of me that said, "We need to stop," and put the phone face up like a sacrament. He wrote back, "Are you sure?" I watched her whole body square itself to yes. I didn't answer Ria's messages for 3 days. She didn't send many, just a good morning that didn't pry and an "Are you sleeping?" that did. On the 4th day I wrote, "Coffee." She chose a cafe with high ceilings where voices travel upward and permission can't find you. When she arrived, I felt that flick of heat again, the good kind, the kind you don't have to justify because you're not sneaking. She sat, and the distance between our chairs had more meaning than the room above us. "How are you?" she asked, and in her mouth the question wasn't a placeholder. "Wobbly," I said, "better than dishonest, worse than naive." "My mother used to say a clean wound hurts more at first," Ria said, "but it's the only kind that heals without a surprise later." We talked without performing. We told each other not just the facts of our marriages but the textures, how the mornings tasted where hands used to rest, the last joke we'd laughed at as a team. It was intimate without trespassing. When she touched my wrist to emphasize a point about a movie, the gesture was light, not an audition. My body noticed anyway. "I keep thinking of that window," I said finally, "how their light landed on our rug." "That's how it always is," she said, stirring a coffee she didn't sweeten. "They think they're safe up there. Forgetting glass is a two-way language." She took a breath, then smiled like she wasn't sure if the smile would be allowed. This is foolish maybe, but would you like to come to the opening my studio is hosting Friday? It's small. Strings of lights and people pretending red wine is personality. You can leave when you want. No glass tanks." I said yes, because it felt like choosing air. Friday came with rain again, the city washing its same streets like they might turn into different ones. Ria's studio was in a brick building that used to make something important and now made beauty. The room was threaded with lights that looked like a constellation had gotten drunk and fallen down to help. People stood in little islands and tried to be interesting. Ria took my coat and didn't pretend we were more than we were. Somehow that made the evening feel like a promise anyway. We moved through the space together. I liked how she let her shoulder brush mine without filling the moment with commentary. When our hands found each other near a series of photographs of abandoned theaters, it wasn't a declaration. It was just warmth. Later, outside under the soft betrayal of an awning that did nothing about wind, she put her palm on my chest and looked at me like a man, not a problem to be solved. "May I?" she asked, and it seemed right to let my answer be movement. We kissed like people who had lost their appetite for pretense. It wasn't feverish. It was focused, an exchange of breath that felt less like theft and more like learning a new instrument and realizing your hands somehow remember the chords. When we parted, we both laughed the brief, private laugh of two people surprised by themselves but not ashamed. "Do we feel guilty?" I asked, honest as a bruise. "Less than we'd feel hiding," she said, "and that's my measure for most things now." I didn't take her home. She didn't invite me upstairs. We traded more than we took. Hannah and I tried therapy like people try a new gym. Earnest, awkward, a little proud of ourselves for sweating in front of a stranger. We built vocabulary. We wrote a few rules that made sense for a while. And then, one morning at the kitchen table with the weak sun warming our fingers, we both knew it. The kind thing would be to let the other go before we turned love into a performance neither of us wanted tickets to. We signed papers in a room with a plant determined to thrive no matter who forgot it. We divided the furniture with a logic that felt like mercy. She took the table. I kept the couch where we'd once fallen asleep during an old movie we pretended to watch. I left my ring on the windowsill, where the afternoon lays a thin gold coin of light. It seemed appropriate to let it keep pretending to be the sun. Ria didn't replace Hannah. That's not how decent stories work. She appeared in my life like a door I hadn't noticed that opened onto a view I could use. We learned each other in increments. A trip to the farmer's market where we argued kindly about peaches. An afternoon where we measured the studio for a new project and ended up measuring our forearms with a tape as if the numbers might explain us. Evenings at my place where music filled the corners less aggressively and her hair left shadows on my pillow like small, unremarkable miracles. We were careful. We were adults. We had the courage, for once, to be a little boring in the service of something that could last. Sometimes, when the city goes watery with midnight and the windows across the street light up like promises no one asked for, I think of that rectangle of brightness in the Orpheum and how it wrote itself onto the carpet of room 1213. I don't hate the memory. I don't thank it either. It's a landmark, like the kind you stop noticing once you've used it to get somewhere else. Hannah sent a text on a Sunday, months later, that said, "I hope you're well." I answered, "I hope you're honest." She replied with a heart that didn't claim anything. I found, to my surprise, that I wanted good things for her. Foolish laughter, a person who chose her as deliberately as lighting chooses a stage. Tonight I'm at my window again, but the light I'm borrowing is gentler. The studio's across the street and Ria is inside, directing her team with a pencil stuck behind her ear and a smile that remembers to include her eyes. She looks up as if called and sees me. She lifts her hand. I lift mine. Between us, glass and rain and distance, there is no performance. Only bodies. Only two people who got tired of pretending and decided to be brave the ordinary way. When she comes over later, she'll slip her cold hands under my shirt and laugh at my yelp. We'll make tea we'll forget to drink because the talk is good. I'll kiss the mint off her tongue with the unhurried certainty of a man who owes no one an alibi. We won't draw the blinds. The city can look if it wants. It has seen worse, and so have we. If there's a lesson, it's not a neon sign. It's a small bulb over a doorway you almost miss. Watch for the moment you stop borrowing light. That's where your life begins again, not under someone else's glow, but in the soft, stubborn brightness you make when you finally tell the truth.